I'm anti-bullshit, I'm anti-war criminals, anti-dropping bombs on harmless children and they can't defend themselves. I mean, what sort of coward do you have to be to sniper a child in the head, not once but twice? What sort of coward, satanic, radicalization has to occur for IDF bulldozers to crush Palestinians under the dozer and kill them? Where one IDF operator admitted he'd killed over 100 Palestinians. He's crushed them under his IDF bulldozer while they're still alive in the rubble. You know, there's 400,000 Palestinians missing. You know what that means, Adrian, if they're missing? Where do you think they're missing? Yeah. They're underneath the rubble of Gaza.
My man.
Hey, how are you?
Very good, buddy. How about yourself?
Very good, thanks. It's a very wet day here in Bath, the studios, but
yeah, is that right?
Yeah, it's meant to be dry season, but it's very wet season.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, heading down to the freezing cold part of New South Wales if you want to, mate, and freeze your balls off around here. It's freaking windy and cold and miserable, but anyway, here we go.
Yeah, I've heard it's good for snow season in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm hearing too. I'd love to go down, but I've got to make some time, I suppose. But how have you been? I was trying to look up when the last time I spoke to you. I think it was in the real sort of shit fight of 2020, probably towards the end of 20 or early 21. Not sure if you can remember, but that's when
I think it's been a while. Yeah, I mean, how much has changed? How much we say was going to happen turned out to be true. I mean,
Jamie, if you were to re-listen to that interview, I was talking to my partner the other day about it, and I was just saying to her that she was asking about you, and I was explaining some of your story and some of the connections that I've had with you over the years. And I just said to her, you're going to have to go and listen to this episode because you were telling me at that time about one world government, digital currency, lockdowns, climate would be the next thing. Like, you talked about all of those things. And I thought that I was kind of exposed to the agenda, so to speak. I was in on the 9/11. I watched all the Zeitgeist films. You know what I mean? I thought I was kind of abreast of the banking side of things. But I was listening to you thinking, fuck, this guy is going on about stuff that I find it very hard to comprehend. But here we are, like you said, 5 years on, mate, I can't point to anything that didn't come true in that interview.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I've said many times, people like myself and independent media journalists wish we were wrong, consistently, unfortunately, very right as far as the track record. Not just that, but my financial predictions I've made as well. Of course, I told people to buy Bitcoin 75 US, etc. All these things, have turned out to be a reality. It's not crystal ball gazing. It's just understanding how the world works and understanding how human psychology works and be able to make predictions of what's already happening. So,
yeah. Well, you were explaining to me about the Spanish flu. You talked about how things have gone in the past, and you were giving me a bit of a brief history lesson on what had happened in the past, and it's just a rinse and repeat. But now that you're exposed to all of that, I mean, here we go again. It's kind of like, how many fucking times can they rinse and repeat this same pattern, this same rhetoric that they keep going on with? But more to the point, I don't know. I'm not confident in the amount of people that are like uprising. Are you in less of an echo chamber than I am in terms of seeing people change for the better, or are you seeing the world kind of, turn on against this kind of global takeover?
Oh, I think it's happening. Obviously some people go back to sleep. I mean, the reality, the way they control most people is that material survival. They've got to go back to their job and pay their globalist debt bank mortgage they have. And as a result of that, they focus on what they can control. And they get confused. The mainstream media is not media, as you know. It's a globalist PR desk to push their agenda and lie to people and deceive them and trick them, confuse them. So of course people are going to be confused if they don't pay attention to what's going on. I think a lot of people are waking up. You see, even in America, look at the rise of the anti-Israel sentiment. That's because more people are waking up to the truth. So yeah, no, I'm very excited. You don't need everyone to wake up. I mean, it's quite unsettling for most people. It's only a certain percentage of society that need to be awake to create change, and change is occurring whether we like it or not.
Mm.
Um, Humans have a bad habit of figuring things out too late. How many people know those weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Weren't there, but they figured that out later. So they know how to use. They don't care about the truth coming out later. As long as they can get away with it in the moment. Like how many people now? They know people are going to eventually figure out that COVID was a fraud, and the
Mm.
vaccines were not safe, effective, and necessary. But they didn't figure it out at the time, enough people, so they're able to get their agenda through and inject a lot of people, and those people unfortunately will pay the price for that, or many already have. They're not here with us anymore.
Mm.
So yeah, no, I'm optimistic. You only have to see, Russia, Iran, China, and other BRIC nations forming a new alliance that don't want a one world government. They want a multipolar world. That's who I support. That's who I think Australia should join. I live in Indonesia now. They're part of the BRICS. The only adult I would say really in the room is Putin. But of course, in the West, we're told to vomit at that Putin's an evil dictator, Iranians are evil dictators, China's an evil dictator, North Korea. Anyone that doesn't allow a Rothschild central bank is an evil dictator. But if we do allow ourselves, bend over and be, raped and pillaged by these globalist banking elites, as Australia has, and most Western nations, then of course we're then labeled a democracy. But our left and right choices are left globalist Zionists or right faction Zionists. Both want a one world government and both want to
Right.
take us over. So they
Two sides of the same
control the
coin.
debate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't support either faction, and I support a multipolar world, which is trade, not war. China's philosophy. If people are critical of China, they're not perfect, but I don't see them going around bombing nation after nation, genociding people around the world. I only know one nation that controls America that loves to genocide. It's in their blood. They can't go a day without bombing another country. So
Mm.
unless that's the reality of it. Once people understand that, where most of the problems in the world stem from, then of course we know what the solution is. A problem properly known is a problem half solved.
Yeah. Well said. It's interesting too, like when you look at the track record of, say, for example, the US. I mean, I don't know how they they get away with becoming this, or at least projecting themselves as this kind of like humanitarian type of nature, that nation that is trying to solve the world's problems, but all they're doing is bombing the shit out of every fucking country they want to take over. They're no different from the British, I suppose, back in the 18 and 1900s. These guys have just got their fingers in every pie, but they're war hungry.
Yeah, I mean, they're not human-like. I mean, they're certainly satanic. But
Yeah.
we mentioned the British Empire. So the globalist left faction controls the British Empire, controls Europe. They're the ones that started the war in Ukraine. They hate Russia. The Khazarians, the founders of Israel, are from Khazaria, which people study history, is eastern Ukraine, southern Russia. That's why they hate Russia. So the British Empire was taken over and controlled by these people because they're the bankers. They loan the money to the empires, and the empires now answer to them. They loan fake money, as you know. I wrote about that in my book in 1999, What I Didn't Learn at School But Wish I Had.
Yep,
People can
read
still
that.
read download it for free. But the fourth chapter, I think it was, talking about the Federal Reserve banking system was a fraud and we need to end it. Yet now, fast track 25 years later, 26 years later, you got Elon Musk last year and Trump talking about ending the Fed, something Ron Paul has talked about for many years. So what was once a conspiracy, now we talk about as knowledge that many people have, that the Fed printing fake money to buy up the world. So these globalist bankers, the Rothschilds predominantly, control the British Empire. They control Winston Churchill. World War I, World War II was created by them. They make money through military sales. They loan money to both sides of the war, and then they decide whichever side they want to win, they loan more money to, on the basis that side takes over the debt of the other side. The bankers can't lose. So even to this day, Thomas Massey's highlighted that, the AIPAC, which is the Israeli lobby, is basically they're lobbyists for the Western military industrial complex. Of course, they want war because they not only profit from that, but they can displace many Muslim nations. The right faction bomb excess Muslim nations, and the left faction Zionists then flood those into our countries in the West to make us hate Muslims, because they want Muslims and Christians to fight each other and be divided so these people can take over the world. But people wrongly diagnose the problem and they hate on Muslims. Yet I say, I live in the largest Muslim nation on the planet. I can tell you it's not radical. They're incredibly peaceful people. They have traditional values, family values that we did have, but we lost in the West because we went woke, satanic, world economic, left-wing faction take over the world, which was to poison our societies from within. So the British Empire on the left is controlled by that. That's why they're trying to destroy Russia. Because Putin booted out these people. The Soviet Union was taken over, the Bolshevik Revolution, remember, and they killed, genocided 30, 60 million in a real Holocaust, not these fabricated, invented Holocausts of 80 years ago, which these people keep referring to and deflecting to. So you focus on that, and so you don't focus on the real Holocaust happening right before our eyes in Gaza. No, that's not a genocide. That's not a Holocaust. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever they'll lie about, and then deflect you back to an 80-year-old Holocaust, which is the only one that's in question, is in dispute. And they'll call us Holocaust deniers for questioning that one, yet they're the ones that deny all the other real Holocausts which aren't in dispute because they did the other Holocausts. And to deflect, they fabricate one, so we have to focus on they are the victim. They are the victim. Like, we're surrounded by enemies in the Middle East. It's like, who put you there? Did the enemies just show up and surround you? Or you chose in 1948 to create a state by theft and genocide and 3 terror groups in the Rothschilds banking family, and then fraudulently call it a biblical name, so the poor people that are good Christian-hearted people think it's what we're told in the Bible. It's a Bible, yeah. Or we're not allowed to curse that nation, we must bless it. But the Bible was written how many thousands of years ago? So how could it be referring to this fake state created in 1948? Because the Bible was written thousands of years ago. How long ago is it 1948? If people just use basic mathematics, they'd see through the deception and the fraud that this fraudulent fake state is about. 77 years when I added up, 1948, 2025. That's not thousands of years ago. How could have the Bible written about this state? It couldn't have, because it didn't exist. It's not a biblical. It's a fraudulent state. And then they said, Rothschilds, satanic Luciferians who hate God and hate Christians, said, oh, we're God's chosen ones. Now, Adrian, perhaps in 1948, there was no fact checkers. Clearly, no one's fact checked that. So I say to people, I just put out, just on my show just before now, like 10 minutes ago, I put up a $10 million challenge. I increased it from 1 million. $10 million challenge of anyone, $10 million in land, Australian National Review would give to anyone. If anyone, all they have to do is provide a simple, logical argument why any individual or any nation, whether it's Australia, America, any nation, should stand with this fake state. That can't be easily debunked as nothing but propaganda. $10 million. You know what? No one will claim it because no one can make that argument. The only people that still remain standing with this fake state are either evil, psychopathic, paid, or deeply misled. There is not a single person on the planet that knows the truth that would stand with this state that is not inherently evil or paid to do so. That's the fact. That's why war by deception. Mossad, war by deception. So everything they say, people are confused. Whatever they say, it's the opposite. Iran just come out this morning, said they've just foiled an attempt by Israel to do a false flag on US soil to blame Iran. We know this is likely. We predicted that's coming. They'll either bomb a USS warship and blame Iran. How do we know that? Well, patterns of behavior. Has this fake state ever bombed a USS warship and killed US Marines. I've had one of the survivors on my show, Phil Turney, a few weeks ago. 34 of his mates were murdered that day, 174 injured, 1967 USS Liberty. Bombed, and then they'll make out, oh, it was an accident. No, it wasn't. This went on for hours and hours and hours. Clear American flag on it. Why would they attack their so-called ally? Because they wanted to blame it on Egypt at the time to start a war. So America would go to war with Egypt to serve this fake state's agenda. 7 wars, Adrian, in 5 years. General Wesley Clark was told when he went to the Pentagon a few days after September 11th, when this fake state did September 11th. Adrian, it's interesting. 25 years later, almost after September 11th, you know how many people don't even know who did September 11th? They don't know this fake state 1948 did it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know why they don't know that? Because they watch the fake news media, which is owned by the criminals that did it. So of course they're not going to go, oh, it was us. We're the mother effers that did it to you. No, no, no. We're going to point the finger at who we want you to think it was, our opponent. So it's always the opposite. If they claim other people, their opponents are terrorists, what's it mean? They are the terrorists. If they claim others are using civilians as human shields, who's really using civilians as human shields? Notice where the misfiring Iron Dome missiles are launching from. Next to fake state residential civilian apartments. So everything about this state is fake. The people that support it only support it because they believe in fake news. That is the core elephant in the room. But my point being is that people are confused. If you understand the basics of who's the problem in the world, then you know what the solutions are. And the solutions don't require war. They require simple sanctioning. What they do to those governments, regimes, they call them, that oppose them, they sanction them to death. Sanction Russia, sanction Iran, they sanction China, North Korea. Why? Because they want to destroy them. And they want regime change. We need to do to them. There needs to be regime change in this fake state and in Ukraine. That would save a lot of lives. So I would suggest the BRIC nations, including Russia and China, need to be better at regime change. It will save wars. Wow. These enemy of the world are very good at regime change. You know, look what they did in Pakistan. They got rid of Imran Khan, the famous cricketer, who's a nationalist leader that loves his country dearly. Who do you think was behind the Pakistan-Indian war recently? Have one guess. Guess which fake state created in 1948 was behind that. Guess who's funding the weapons and causing trouble, wars throughout Africa and slaughtering Christians? The fake state that they've fooled Christians in America and the West to stand with. You even had the Charlie Kirks of the world. Good Christian boy, Charlie does a lot of good, but he's paid by the fake state to say we must stand with this fake state.
No way.
So how can you be a Christian but stand with some people, a state that bombs relentlessly almost every day unarmed children and their mothers and their fathers and destroyed 90% of Gaza? But they're going, it's Hamas are the evil ones. Okay, once again, when they say Hamas is the evil ones, the opposite is they are the evil ones. Hamas is just the brand. Who created Hamas? The fake state people. Who funds Hamas? Oh, it's Iran. No, it's predominantly this fake state. We have all the evidence of that. Who let Hamas across the border October 7th? Who ignored the signals and the sensors? Who moved the IDF away beforehand? Who shipped in dead Israelis that had already murdered and put at the rave concert, which they had moved 48 hours before, to frame and blame Hamas?
Wow.
Who bombed the Apache helicopters and killed all the people in the cars at the rave concert? It's strange. Hamas doesn't have Apache helicopters. Who blew up Israeli houses with tanks and killed Israelis inside the house? That's strange because Hamas doesn't have Israeli army tanks. So they claim it's a war and these dead people they're killing in Gaza is collateral damage. That's interesting. To have a war, Adrian, you have to have an opposing army. I didn't know Palestine had an army. Oh, but Hamas Okay. So Hamas has what? An air force of paragliders and a battalion of dirt bikes that not even the Vanuatu or Fijian government would be threatened by? Oh, but they have missiles and they fire them into this fake state. No, they don't. Hamas has never had missiles. They have a few rocket grenades, which is like fireworks. They fire up, and this fake state has an Iron Dome, which American taxpayers have paid billions for, which they won't hand over the IP because they sell this Iron Dome around the world for a fortune. And we reported on Australian National Review last year. Researchers sent us in the information. It's a fraud. It's fake. It doesn't stop missiles. As we've now seen when they realize bombing unarmed babies is a little bit easier because they're not big enough to throw pebbles back at this fake state's fence, prison they put around them. They're now fighting Iran. And guess what's happening? The fake news they own will tell you that Israel's dominant and winning.
Are you over 40, successful but unfulfilled? Do you feel stuck, like you're not truly living up to who you really are? So many high achievers wake up and think, I'm a good person, I read all the books, I listen to all the podcasts, yet there's something missing. Well, you're not alone. I've been there myself quite a few times. And quite frankly, it took a lot of years of really fucking around, trying to figure out what I now call your higher self blueprint, which has enabled me to live a life and make a living with my passions and my purpose. If you're ready to break free from a life that's holding you back, I'm hosting a free training around the 5 pillars of success that will enable you to create a more meaningful, fulfilling, and purposeful life. So click the link in the show notes and I look forward to seeing you in the training. But for now, let's get back to the podcast.
Israel's getting slaughtered. Guess who wants a ceasefire now? Israel. Just like Ukraine wants a ceasefire. You know why they want a ceasefire? Because they're getting their ass kicked.
Really?
Why should Russia and Iran stop? They have a right to defend themselves, don't they? Because this fake state told us, oh, you have a right to defend yourself. Well, yes, they do. They have a right for regime change in this fake state and in Ukraine. Ukraine is Israel too. The globalist left want that as Israel too because they know, Adrian, guess what? This state, they know Israel 1 is going to fall. They want to go back to where they're from. Oh, but I thought they were Semites. You're anti-Semitic. It's okay, really? Well, let's do a DNA test and prove that. Am I anti-Semitic? You're not allowed DNA testing in this fake state because people would find out it's a fake state. And the people there that are fake Jews. No offense to the Jews, but you know, is it a religion or is it a bloodline? It's not a bloodline. They don't belong there. The Semites are Palestinians predominantly. They come from Eastern Ukraine, including Netanyahu. So let's not get caught in the BS. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm anti-bullshit. I'm anti-war criminals, anti-dropping bombs on harmless children that can't defend themselves. I mean, what sort of coward do you have to be to sniper a child in the head, not once but twice? How much sort of coward, satanic, radicalization has to occur for IDF bulldozers to crush Palestinians under the dozer and kill them? Where one IDF operator admitted he'd killed over 100 Palestinians. He's crushed them under his IDF bulldozer while they're still alive in the rubble. You know, there's 400,000 Palestinians missing. You know what that means, Adrian, if they're missing? Where do you think they're missing? They're underneath the rubble of Gaza. So let me ask Christians in the world, let's think about it. If I'm not meant to curse this nation, really? Because the Bible says that? No, the Bible's not talking about this nation. This nation is a fake state, fraudulently using a biblical name to trick you. Rothschilds even had the Bible rewritten. The Schofield Bible to fool. They even pay pastors in America to say we must stand with this fake state and you'll go to heaven. I don't think you're going to go to heaven. And I don't think God will be too happy with any Christian. If you want to poke God in the eye, be a Christian and stand with this evil satanic people. And I'm not saying the civilians of this fake state are evil. I'm saying the core of the founders and their death cult are evil and they need to be eradicated off this planet. How do you do that? They should be locked away in jail forever to the day they die. Their assets should be taken and paid in reparations to their victims, such as Palestine. The state should be disbanded And if they want to continue a state, I think Greenland would be a nice place to put them, because why Greenland? All they can genocide will sacrifice the baby seals. They can genocide and get their bloodthirst from genociding baby seals is better than baby humans. And they can live there until the day they die, might cool them down before they go to hell.
Fuck.
That's what I suggest. And the two people take a stand, but they war by deception. They're likely to do one or three things right now. They're desperate. They're getting their ass kicked, and Iran can wipe them off the map. Lucky Iran is not this evil regime they make it out. It's not perfect, but Iran is not a backward state. People live a very good life there, and
Mm.
they could live a better life if they weren't sanctioned to death. China and Russia will not let Iran fall. It's a critical part of the BRICS. What this is about is trying to stop the BRICS and to save the US dollar. Any leader, because Iran and China don't trade in US dollars anymore, they're selling their oil outside of that. The BRIC nations are rising, and I think it's too late for America to stop it. Trump had his chance.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
Can
a
you zoom out a
nationalist leader
little?
and make America great again
Yeah.
and dump Israel. You can't make America great and be MAGA. Are you
Yeah.
MAGA or MAGA? MAGA or MAGA?
Yeah, that's right.
MAGA or MAGA? MAGA or MAGA? Trump deceived Iran.
Fuck
Now
yeah.
I know it's offensive. A lot of people love Trump, and I supported Trump. But I was there at CPAC when Trump was there, Musk, Millet, all the Zionists. And I saw firsthand Israeli handlers messaging the message to keep MAGA movement at ease, because MAGA didn't support war. They supported Trump because he said he's a peacetime president. They supported him because they hoped he would stand up to this fake state created in 1948. It's
Mm.
not the case. You're not on the Trump team.
Trump deceived a lot of people though, Jamie. Like it's not just on a political international level, then his own people. He's backflipped on so many things. I mean, you can see it from a distance. There's still a lot of diehards out there that are still saying that it's all trust the plan nonsense and all that shit. But, can I ask you though, can you zoom out just a little bit for me, because you've unloaded like a shit ton of information there. But I personally struggle to grapple with the chess pieces that have been moved. And I understand, like, for example, in Iran is one of the few nations that don't have a Rothschild central bank system. And I understand the correlation between China and Russia and Iran, like uniting in that BRICS that you mentioned before. But I still wonder like what other chess moves should be made, will be made, and what's the overall, I guess, end game, for them, and why are they sort of pushing so hard at the moment? I know it's a lot of questions in one go, but
It's a very important. So to understand that, no one knows everything in full detail, but as long as you
right.
grasp, the bigger picture. So as I said, there's two major factions fighting, and they generally hate each other. The
Mm,
globalist left, woke, World Economic Forum, you'll own nothing but be happy, 2030 agenda, George Soros, the Bill Gateses, the Rockefellers, all those woke nutters, and we all agree we don't support the satanic woke bullshit, transgenderism, all that sort of stuff.
mhm,
So that's where Trump got a lot of support. But the Trump we thought was going to be a political revolution that people wanted, because Trump was an anomaly, right? They didn't really want Trump. They'd rather a Jeb Bush or, DeSantis or someone they can easily control.
mm,
Okay. But Trump cut through, said, the globalist left tried to assassinate him. The right, so the right faction, Netanyahu, they're both Zionists, but left and right. They generally hate each other. At least on the right, conservative, they control conservative politics. At least some of their policies are much better, such as fiscal discipline, stop immigration, etc. But you have to stand with war criminals that like to bomb children and etc. And if you're comfortable with that, by all means, cheer them on. What's it reflect about you? It probably means that you're going to be a modern day leper in the future, because one day anyone left standing with this fake state is probably going to struggle to get a job, or be able to participate in social circles, because you could be considered a leper, because stood standing with the evil of humanity. And unfortunately, many good, smart people are going to fall into that trap. So you have their game plan is this: the right side faction, Netanyahu, etc., Zionists want the Greater Israel Project. That's what they want.
mhm.
So to achieve that, they need to destroy Iran, and then they can take over all the Middle East, all their resources, before they move on to the genociding of Christians around the world. The left faction also want a one world government. They already control most of the Western governments. Australia is predominantly controlled by the globalist left faction. Dutton was a bit of that, but also wanted to beg Israel right faction to help him become prime minister. So we always go left and right, left and right. Right faction Zionists, left faction Zionists. They, probably above the top of these two factions is the same people playing us. So wherever we think that's the only two choices we have, and people supported Trump because he was meant to be draining the swamp. He wasn't meant to be either. He was meant to be a nationalist leader. So the BRICS are the nationalist leaders. Putin is arguably, whether you believe in Western propaganda, you wouldn't believe this, but Putin would be the most popular leader on the planet. He has massive support in Russia and massive support around the world. So whether you like Putin or not, Putin has been able to bridge that gap and be a nationalist leader. He's not controlled by the globalist left or the right faction Zionists, okay? Neither. Now, some people try and say, oh, you went to the World Economic Forum, young leaders. I would have went as well if I was invited 10, 20 years ago. Of course he would have went. He's rebuffed those woke policies greatly, right? So some people, so the factionists, the Zionists try and fool people, don't support them because they're supporters of that. I mean, it's just a tactic psyops to confuse people. They want confusion. Otherwise, you'd quickly go, I'm going to support the BRICS. So you want nationalist leaders. Trump was meant to be a nationalist leader, make America first. But he's still loyal to Israel. He's controlled by Israel. That's the problem. And MAGA is splitting. I saw it even in February in Washington and CPAC. It was splitting. The J6s were kicked out of that event. And they were about to cause a riot there, rightfully them, because people realize this is a Zionist conference, the Trump administration is Zionist. And some people that diehard Q fans and Trump fans, they're debating me on social media right now. Where's the evidence he's a Zionist? He said it himself many times. Has he not continually said, we need to get American people to love Israel more? Yeah. I stand with Israel. They're our ally. We must support them. They're defending democracy in the Middle East. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. All this bullshit. Yeah. Without Israel, they're defending Western civilization. That's funny because they're kind of destroying Western civilization. Western civilization, the greatness of it was built by white Christians. Is that not true? White Christians. And who's being eradicated or eliminated or made a minority in their own country? We used to be a predominantly white Christian nation in Australia. Are we anymore? The Kalergi plan is flooding excess Muslims, and particularly the more radical ones of them, into white Christian nations to divide, to conquer. But we're going, oh, it's the Muslims' fault. The Muslims aren't bombing their own nations. Israel is. The Muslims aren't sending themselves around the world for an agenda. That is the globalist left. The right faction Zionism is bombing all the Muslim nations, creating refugees. Look at Libyans. Gaddafi warned that if this happens, France, etc., will be flooded. And now, and the left side floods them all throughout Europe. And Europe and Ireland and UK is fallen. What was white Christian civilization that was built? That's why they hate white Christians. That's why they genocided so many in the Bolshevik Revolution. Why is Australia? So what we should be doing is just not politically. Politically, Australia should support the BRICS. But why aren't we friends with Russia? Russia is a white Christian nation predominantly with traditional values. We should be aligned with that. It's not the Soviet Union. It was controlled by the Rothschilds. It was controlled then by the takeover of that and the slaughter of white Christians. And as they controlled the British Empire, and they lied to us, they started World War II, World War I. Who do you think dropped the atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima? That is this fake state. They've controlled. Who did they assassinate? JFK, when he tried to stop this fake state getting nuclear bombs because he knew they would be, they're psychos, right? They're the only nation likely to drop them on people. So if you want to know if there's a war starting anywhere in the world, you know who's behind it, the bankers that own the fake state created in 1948. So people understand that. So that's their game plan. Both those factions, left and right, want a one world government run out of Jerusalem, or now Ukraine, Israel too. If you don't want a one world tyrannical government that's going to genocide you because you're white or you're Christian or you're a Muslim, they're going to bomb you to death, then I suggest you start supporting the BRICS. They're not perfect, but led by Russia and Putin, who's arguably the most popular leader on the planet. Name me a Western leader that's a nationalist leader that has massive support. Trump has a lot of support, but he's losing that. But name me, like, as Airbus Albanese, is he a strong nationalist leader that the majority of Australians, like 70% of Australians, would support? No. Dutton, no. What about Starmer? What about Macron? Are these strong nationalist leaders that can inspire their people and they don't need to rig elections to be elected? Not one of them, because the globalist left has controlled most of the West. Left faction Zionism. They want to replace that with right faction. Milei, doing a great job fiscal management in Argentina. But guess who he is? He's a right faction Zionist. He'll wrap himself in a flag, the Zionist flag. Bolsonaro, great leader, that used to be president of Brazil. Once again, Zionist. Nigel Farage, who I invited to be chairman of the Global Economic Forum that I'm part of setting up to compete with the World Economic Forum. Guess what? He's a Zionist. Israel is funding Avi Yemeni and some of the so-called pretend independent media. Is Ben Shapiro an independent journalist? Is he invited to, and is he a nominee for any of the independent media awards coming up next month? It's being hosted by us, Australian National Review, in Gold Coast, July 19th, 20th? No, because Ben Shapiro is not an independent journalist. He built a $100 million media empire, or did he? Funded by, guess who? Right faction Zionists. He's a fake state propagandist. He's an agent. Charlie Kirk, it's much better, but Charlie, good Christian boy, God bless him, good-hearted person, but misled, but he's starting to wake up. Piers Morgan, starting to wake up that Israel maybe is the problem. Maybe the vaccines weren't safe and effective. So these people are slowly waking up. But credit to Tucker Carlson, a true independent media journalist, Candace Owens, Ian Carroll, Whitney Webb, Joe Rogan, who we're hoping to be able to co-host the awards night for this. But what I'm saying, Avi Yemeni did a great job exposing the COVID fraud, but turned out to be what? A Zionist. Is he an independent media journalist? No, he's funded by the Zionists to push Zionist ideology. Craig Kelly, great guy, stood up, but I bet you Craig won't criticize Israel. Pauline Hanson, great politician, comes from a heart, could have been a nationalist leader, could have formed a government, a coalition of governments, and not her, but maybe her party become even the government at one stage. But why? She draped herself in what flag in Canberra in Parliament last year? The dumbest political stunt, because One Nation took money from Israel. All the minor parties took money from Israel. They're so desperate for chump change, they'll sell the country out. So if you're right, I'm not pro-Israel. I'm not pro-Zionist. I'm not globalist left woke. I'm not right faction. That's how they fool people. If you stood, they fooled the left, Adrian, to stand with Ukraine. And they fool the right to stand with Israel. If you stand with either of those propaganda movements, then you are misled. So how many in the freedom movement figured out COVID was a fraud, falsified pandemic, and as soon as October 7th happened, they went right back into believing the mainstream media. Hamas is evil. Israel is good. We have a right to defend ourselves. What, against babies that are going to grow up to throw pebbles at their prison fence erected around them on the land that you stole? You see how easily people are fooled? They went right back into their programming. And if you dare mention anything and you're not pro-Israel in Australia, oh boy, you'll be censored. I wonder why Australian National Review is so censored. I've been invited. I've been to Israel on a delegation. Funny, once you went into politics, I went into politics 2013. Next year, I got an invite to go there. I was asked to be a friend of Israel too. And I'm not against Jewish people. Sure. Many billionaire Jewish people in Australia are my friends. I've hosted them, or I've been hosted by them for years. Many of them support my politics, but they know they can't speak out publicly. It's not very good for business. They keep their head down. But this is part of the problem. Because otherwise the Jewish are the ones that are going to cop it, again, wrongly, because people go, they hate what the Rothschilds stand for and what these elites stand for, and then they put that hatred on the Jewish people, and it shouldn't go onto those people. And it should go onto the Zionists and the people that are supporting that ideology and ban them. If you want to be a Zionist and love killing kids and cheer that on, great, but you're banned from society. You're sacked, sack them, close their bank accounts, not those who are like us that stand up and oppose it, that want to shut down our bank accounts and destroy us. That's what you should do. So Australia, it needs a strong nationalist leader. It needs someone to tell Israel to go fuck itself. And it needs to say, we're joining the BRICS and we're going to apologize to both China and Russia. Russia, we should have never been sending weapons to Ukraine. Russia, you're not our enemy. You have traditional values. You're a white Christian nation, and we want to be your friends and do trade, and we respect your leadership. Imagine the Western politicians and the Western media. They'd be vomiting right now hearing this. But is it not true? So Australian people, if you hate Putin or hate Russia, why? You've got to look at your propaganda. If you stand with Israel despite the fact they're bombing children and lying to you about it, why would you stand with that? Oh, no, but Iran's evil. I'm not saying you have to stand with Iran. I'm just saying you need to stand with the truth. That truth can be brutal, can be ugly, can be offensive. It's not good for ratings. But I'd rather live in truth and share the truth and speak the truth, and I don't care what the consequences are for that, because I can tell you now, Adrian, the consequences of enough people don't do that are far greater.
Absolutely. Jamie, I know you had your political aspirations in the past. Are you, like me, are you politically disillusioned, or are you still on the notion that we as a nation, um, as I guess an overused word, as a collective, that we still need to unite and stand and make more noise about the things that we disagree? Because Australia is still very quiet when it comes to regime change and policy changes and all these things that are still being implemented, whilst we've got all these little, faction regimes and bits and pieces going on and wars to distract us. We still got digital ID. We still got all of these sort of different changes with banning kids, using the internet. There's so many things that I can speak to, which are the Agenda 2020, the Agenda 2030. Everything's still playing out just as it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. When I was at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Group, in Washington in February, I was a little bit disillusioned because I caught up with Joel Jamal there. Joel is speaking. He's a young political strategist. Some of you know Joel, speaking at the event coming up that I'm hosting, July 19th, 20th, the Free Speech Summit. And because he shared that, because I've been funding and hoping for a political revolution since 2013 when I launched Australian National Review. I realized that in a decade, Australians would want real media. They were being lied to. I can't stand liars. So I had a little idea when I launched independent media in Australia how that would change my life. I had we heard of the deep state, but I didn't know how infiltrated our country was. And immediately I was set up upon by government agencies tied up in legal battles. I was cancelled culture. They cancelled me. They character assassinated me. They took millions of dollars in real estate assets. They made out that I lost investors' money. I was cancelled. And even to this day, it still costs me a large amount of money. That's why I'm planning a lawsuit against the Australian government, the ASIC, next year for $250 million, in compensation. But the point being is that that's just part of the game. They want to silence you. Why did they want to silence me? If I was talking shit, then let me talk shit. Who's going to listen to me? But they wanted to silence me because, one, I had a big following. I was financially independent, had financial resources, and I launched a political party at the same time. I was hosting the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was back then my political mentor. Not necessarily now. Arnold's a great guy, but he got caught up in that little bit of woke nonsense. But other than that, I was hosting those events in 2013, so I got a lot of media attention. I was speaking to audiences that were showing up for my political rallies with 3,000 people. Julia Gillard at the time couldn't even get 100 paid union staffers to listen to her. So people obviously, and I had a lot of business people. Being an entrepreneur was someone people wanted to see in politics. I ran 21st Century Australia. We launched as a political party. Really, it was a political movement. I didn't really want to go into the political system. I think we needed the idea was to create a new political system, change our system that's failing us. It's 200 years old. It's no longer working. It's been rigged. So, and I ran against, but they delayed and played tricks, the AIC, to make sure my party couldn't be registered in time for the election. They deliberately did every trick in the book. Why were they so scared? And they registered the day after it could have run in the election. So I had to run as an independent against Barnaby Joyce in the city of New England, and Barnaby won that election and ended up becoming the deputy prime minister. So I did that as a testing thing. So I've been fighting for this for years. So I spoke to Joel Jamal, and after listening to him, how it's going to try and create a political revolution in Australia, because the political system is two-party system is very difficult. I was disillusioned, like it's not going to happen for at least 10 years. So I decided well, I want to focus on, and also I was disappointed knowing that the Trump administration was completely Zionist and we're not going to get the political revolution we were hoping in America and on the globe. So I was a little bit disappointing, disillusioned for a bit. And then I go, okay, once again, we all have to do this. What can I focus on? So I decided to focus on building a new large city for expats to escape to, because Australia is going to go down as is America and the West. And Australians in the near future will not be able to afford to continue living in Australia, and the middle class in Australia is going to get crushed. Many of them will end up homeless, living on the streets, and Australia is going to see such violence and poverty that it's never imagined possible. That's what's coming for Australia in the next 5-10 years. You only have to look at England, the Western Europe and America to see what's coming, which is very sad for Australia. I wish there'd be different. Australia will have a political revolution when it's ready to stop having a leader that reflects who they are, a weak leader like Albanese. When they want a strong nationalist leader who cuts through the bullshit and tells them how it is, then they will get that. But they're at least 10, 15 years away from that. Even myself, if I have political aspirations, I'm not going to waste my life trying to do that. Maybe in 10, 15 years, when Australia says it's ready, people like me might bother to show up and come back to Australia and help it save itself. But until then, Australians are going to have to participate in their own rescue. I left Australia 3 years ago. It was the best decision I ever made. Really? I'm not saying people should leave, but I'm saying you have to focus on what you can control. My duty is to live happily life and live the best I can. I've done a lot for trying to create political revolution, but that's why I'm holding the Independent Media Summit, because unless we have a strong independent media, there will be no political revolution. Murdoch owns the right side of media. He's the second largest funder in Netanyahu, and Murdoch is a Zionist. Okay, he's building a global media empire. I want to do the same, but I want to do it as a force for good. I'm not a Zionist. Okay, if I was, I'd get a lot of funding. They approached to fund Australian National Review. I said no, because I'm not a sellout. Murdoch, do a business deal. He'll sell out for money. He did. But he's not a man of, I'm not saying he's not a man of principle. I haven't met him personally, but I'm saying he doesn't have a higher purpose to want to do the right thing on a grander scale. If he makes, X amount of billions of dollars, that's success for him. That's his model of the world. That has to change. You need people that care about their country more than money, care about the world more than money, people that can't be bought. Look at Putin. Can you buy Putin? I doubt it. Is he dedicated to making Russia great? And already has in 25 years. So whether you like Putin or not, oh, Putin's this, Putin that, says what, Western propaganda? Put the Western propaganda aside and find me a better leader. So yes, Australia can still have a political revolution, but let's not kid ourselves. I see people trying to do it now, but that's why we need a strong independent media. And that's why people should be at the Independent Media Summit event in July. If they wish to come, we'll give you free tickets, Adrian, for yourself and your supporters. But unless people support an independent media in that rising, because you've got the globalist left faction media, Channel 7, 9, 10, all the woke bullshit, which is most of the media. And then you've got Murdoch fighting for the conservative side, which is Zionism, right faction. How about neither of those sides? Stop picking those sides, because they're both loser sides. They both want to control you. They're both lying to you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a shit about your country. Australia's sold off its resources for what? A mining job? High-paying jobs that you get taxed. 52% of the tax revenue in Australia comes from personal tax. Why are Australians paying any tax? If I was Prime Minister of Australia, guess what I'd do, Adrian? First thing, ban income tax. It'd be abolished immediately or phased out fairly shortly. Australians should not pay any income tax. Australians will start taxing the globalists. They're taking our resources out of the country tax-free. They will pay the tax, and we'll nationalise many industries, including some of the mining industry, including our banks.
Interesting.
So we would take charge and make Australia great again. Australia is for Australians. We're not going to sell off Australia for some lousy jobs. What's the point of a high-paying job if you have to pay 50% tax and you have to live in a high-cost country? You're poor.
Yeah.
You've sold your future out for a job. You should own the country. Australia should get dividends, royalties, not taxes. Income tax is created by who? The Rothschilds. So that when they loan fake money to your governments, they print fake money through the Fed, which they can't do anymore. That's why they started the war, because whenever the financial system is going down, they'll start a war to cover their financial crimes and try and reset the system, which they're trying to do. Your government has to pay back that money, that fake money they've been given, with real money. And where do they get it from? Taxes. Rothschilds created income tax. Why should you be taxed on working? There should be zero income tax. It should be banned and abolished, And that's what a nationalist leader would do for Australia. But when Australians are ready for a nationalist leader, independent media, I will help support that nationalist leader come to power. Will I go back into politics myself? Probably not for a while. I've got a city to build in Indonesia for expats to flee to. Because I'm going to suggest many Australians should leave their country. If you want to create a political revolution, sometimes it's easy to do outside their country. Most Australians won't be able to afford to keep living in their country, but when they have enough pain, they might go, shit, we should stop believing the bullshit on fake news media that's left and right, and we should start listening to people that have been telling the truth for a very long time, that have been cancelled, that have been character assassinated, that are the ones that are actually standing, putting their money where their mouth is, and supporting independent media, and we have since 2013, told the truth about COVID. If people listened to us, they would have bought Bitcoin at 75 US, they'd be richer today. Fake news media told them not to buy it. If people listened to us, they wouldn't have took a COVID vaccine, they'd be healthier today. But they listened to fake news media, which told them to take it and lied to them. Now they're sick and dying, or they're seeing relatives dying. Yeah. So if you listen to independent media, you'll be richer and healthier. If you listen to fake news media, you'll be poorer and sicker. It's a pretty easy choice, but make up your mind, folks. You can keep on believing the left and right faction media and vote and think your team won. They're controlled both by the same. They're both going to want you to have a one world government and genocide Christians and blame it on the Muslims. Yeah, they'll play you like fools. Stand with Ukraine on the left, stand with Israel on the right. If you stand with either of them, you're being manipulated. Simple as that. So the truth, as I say, Adrian, people, when they're ready for it, they'll seek it. But Australia's a long way off a political revolution. And in the meantime, we want to help with that, and we will help with that. But we need a strong independent media.
Yeah, agreed. Look, I think it's just human nature that it's going to get to the 11th hour before people make significant change. I do agree that we need fewer people than what is imagined, but I guess people have to get to a point of no return before they make a decision to make a life-changing move, like leave the country. That's a big move, but there's a lot of steps before that.
Just on that, Adrian, here's what I'd say.
Are you over 40, successful, but unfulfilled? Do you feel stuck, like you're not truly living up to who you really are? So many high achievers wake up and think, I'm a good person, I read all the books, I listen to all the podcasts, yet there's something missing. Well, you're not alone. I've been there myself quite a few times. And quite frankly, it took a lot of years of really fucking around, trying to figure out what I now call your higher self blueprint, which has enabled me to live a life and make a living with my passions and my purpose. If you're ready to break free from a life that's holding you back, I'm hosting a free training around the 5 pillars of success that will enable you to create a more meaningful, fulfilling, and purposeful life. So click the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you in the training. But for now, let's get back to the podcast.
When the empires are falling, you don't have to leave Australia, but I would tell you should get some of your money and assets out of Australia now. That's my clear warning. Otherwise, you may be forced as an immigrant to leave Australia in the future, and like many immigrants that come to Australia years ago, had to leave everything behind because they won't let you take your house or your property or your assets out of the country. Australians don't realize how close they are. There's quasi-capital controls on Australia right now. There's something you can tweet. What do you mean? You try and send money overseas out of Australian bank account right now, and they will block you, they'll stop you, they'll defame you. It's almost impossible already now. You wait a year or two. American empire, 250 years next year. Most empires expire about 250 years religiously. The American empire can't be saved. Elon Musk left the administration because he was trying to save it fiscally. And then Trump agrees this big, beautiful bill, which means they're going to spend more. It doesn't matter if it was Biden or Trump, you would have got the same policies. Big, beautiful bill. They're controlled because Israel's never going to let that bill cut the defense budget, etc. It's going to keep on spending that money. And so America can't be saved fiscally. Unless there's an AI revolution that saves it, it's gone. And what do you think's going to happen to Australia? Unless there's not major changes, Australia's in a worse situation. Why? Because it's so goddamn expensive, the middle class are going to be destroyed. And it's going to be sad what's going to happen. And they're not going to have leadership that can fix it or help it. And Australians don't get their money out of Australia, out of Western banks, and some of their assets. See what happens. Mark my words. I predicted everything I predicted has turned out to be true so far. Yeah. You'd be crazy to leave all your money in Western Australian banks and your assets all in Australia. You will pay a serious price. And I have so many wealthy friends that are like, la, 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 all their assets in Australia because they think Australia is capitalist society. What about the 2030 agenda? You'll own nothing, be happy, don't you get? Globalism. It's communism versus Zionism. Globalism is slow creeping communism on the left, and the right faction is Zionism. Choose. You want communism or Zionism? What do you want? Because
Yeah.
that's what's coming.
But that wouldn't be isolated just to Australia, though. I mean, the one world government is one world government. It's like, where are you safe? Indonesia seems like
BRICS.
one.
BRICS.
Yeah,
The
got
BRIC
it.
nations. You're much safer. Indonesia is a major member of the BRICS. Indonesia, I'm backing Indonesia. It's the safest country I think there is on the planet. It's not perfect.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, but they're Muslims. It's like, and?
Yeah,
Stop
sure.
fake idiot box that Muslims are evil people, that Muslims all believe in
No.
Sharia bullshit. That's an extremist part of Muslim, but it's not the case in most. The most peaceful country, they have traditional values that Christians should support.
Mm.
They are happy people. The second rated Indonesia, the second in the world in the happiest index. They are becoming an economic powerhouse. They're expected by 2050 to be the fourth largest economy on the planet, just behind the United States of America. I mean, we're talking a country that has a future. Why do I think I'd buy so much property and develop so much property in Indonesia and building an entire city in Indonesia, Marina Bay City? Why? Because would I go and buy property in Israel right now? No. Why? Because Israel doesn't have a future. If you thought it had a great prosperous future, you'd go and buy property or develop property there, wouldn't you? But
Mm.
no, anyone knows, no matter what you think about Israel, it doesn't have a future. What about Australia? Would you go and buy property now in Australia? I wouldn't. Why? Because the future of Australia is no longer certain. Australia had a future, but it made some pretty bad decisions. It can be saved, but that's going to take time, and they don't have the leadership to do that because they control left and right. Until you dump both those.
Mhm.
So why
Jamie,
would I
can I
invest in
just cut you off
Indonesia?
for a
Because
second?
Indonesia has a future. It's all
Sure.
psychology. It has a massive future. They're excited. They're young. They're vibrant. They have probably way better democracy. They got rid of Israel in the Suharto regime 26 years ago. Guess what? The Suharto regime was genociding Indonesians. I wonder why they were genociding. Because they were controlled by, guess who? A fake state that loves killing people.
Yeah.
Strange.
All right, we'll definitely look up some Indonesia hotspots. We'll see. We'll see if we can come and join your community and your city over there. In wrapping this up, though, I've been wanting to ask you. The last time we spoke about solutions to these problems. You've mentioned a bunch already. One of the things that you said 5 years ago was knowledge, exposure, getting the word out, getting people to recognize what's going on. But here we are 5 years. I mean, fuck, like it's in your face. And if you're not ready to wake up, well, then you're just going to miss the boat. What other things do you want to add to what you've already said in terms of what Australians can do, or even internationally? There's people that would be listening from all around the world. What can they do to better prepare themselves, other than flee to the country and learn how to raise chickens and grow veggies?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no, I think people have to understand the first step to creating change is awareness,
Sure.
the great awakening to the truth. So just, some people are with just a lot of problems, a lot of doom and gloom. No, by being aware of what the problems are, a problem known is a problem half solved. It's not known. If you don't know there's a problem, like many Australians who are asleep don't know there's a problem, then you have no chance of coming up with a solution because you don't even know to look for one. Or if you misdiagnose the problem, it's the Muslims, but not realizing who's causing the Muslim mass immigration problem is
Mm.
Israel. Do you know what I'm saying? You misdiagnose it, you go for the wrong source.
Yeah.
So awareness is the first step to change, and often the only step required, just by awakening, realizing, hey, maybe I shouldn't stand with Israel bombing kids. It could be a bad look. Maybe I better go and check the Bible. Did it really say the fake state created in 1948, led by a Netanyahu regime? I should support them no matter how many kids they murder. I'm pretty sure it doesn't say that in the Bible. So you should go, okay, I need to know the truth. So it's just by being aware of enough people being aware will oppose what Israel's doing, and the cabal will fall. But if we're being tricked and manipulated like half the MAGA movement has, or QAnons, etc., then we're going to end up supporting the right faction Zionists when we think we're getting a political revolution. We're actually playing into the hands for a one world government run out of Jerusalem.
Mm.
So we have to be aware, and we go, well, we are, because they're dumping the globalists F, we hate them, so these must be our people. I was as I said, at CPAC, I didn't feel, we were almost kicked out. I didn't feel it was our people. It should have been conservative side of politics. We're conservative side of politics. We didn't feel safe there. We had to whisper sometimes when we were recording because they heard what we were saying. They'd probably boot us out of there. I mean, that's not where people should be. So BRICS. So in other words, the solutions for Australia are the same. So what are the solutions that people do? Not keep all your money in Australia, in Western banks, get some of it out. Don't keep all your assets. If you've got property in Australia, great. Maybe cash some of it in and buy some property overseas. The political risks to remain in Australia. If you don't think they're going to, I'm one of the first who spoke out about the globalist agenda. They took my assets in Australia. You think that's not going to happen to you? They will just smear you and character assassinate you and say you've lost someone's money and take them off you. They can invent any bullshit like they did to me. And dumb people believe fake news media and stand with the government, and they're the ones that are attracting it, are criticizing or slagging off people like me that are putting my money where my mouth is to try and save Australia and try and do the right thing for Australia. But they'll be getting scammed by the government and by fake news media, but they'll call everyone else a scammer. So people like that are so lost, they're going to go down with the ship.
Sure.
So if you leave it too late in Australia, so solutions are very simple. If you don't want to move overseas, you don't have to, but you have to accept if you're going to remain in Australia, the cost of living is only going to get way worse. And, the cost of housing is going to get way worse. The newer generations won't be able to afford a house. So you have to accept those things. Your salary will not keep up with the cost of living. You're going to get poorer and poorer and poorer. Yet a middle-class Australian could still leave and go live in Indonesia and be rich and live like a king and be set for life. You could do that. But if you leave that too late, you won't have that option. So no, you don't have to leave, but accept the consequences if you don't, or accept the consequences if you don't get smarter and do something to escape the debt trap. Don't buy more property in Australia if you have to borrow money. That's how they control you. The globalists, Rothschilds, bankers control you because you're a slave, buy a property, pay it for 25 years. They keep all your rent. You don't need banks. Our clients buy overseas, buy marinabayscity.com, and they don't even need a bank. Why? If they need funding, we'll give it to them. 0 interest, 0 repayments. You don't need a bank. Or we base it on a character assessment. If you're a good person and not an idiot, and and understand the truth about the world, you pass. You get 60% funding. That way it should be. Based on your character of who you are as a person, you're approved, not based on some bullshit. So the point is, you don't need banks. Banks are a fraud. Why do you think they're pushing up the property prices? Why do you think the bankers flooded Australia with 1.7 million immigrants? Because they own the property market. If it was to crash, they go under. They own your government. They control the immigration policy, this fake state. So all those, you've got to accept reality of what's coming and then go, what am I going to do about this? Am I going to live in Australia all the time? Or what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Should I have food insurance? Yes. If you rely on Woolworths and Coles for your food supply, what if something does go wrong? How can you survive 72 hours or a week or a month? It's stupid if you live in a city and you don't, you need to start thinking about food insurance. How do you have some food aside so things go, electricity grid went down, etc. So yes, there's things you set down, but if enough people, consumer activism as well, sanction people that stand with a fake state, sack them. You can do that. You can do way more. People think they can't do anything. Go, well, I can't do anything about that. I'm just going to mind my own business. So, well, how's that working for you? Okay. Well, I'm going to stay here and fight and save Australia. Well, how's that working for you? You have a duty to save you and your family and do the best you can. Doesn't mean you have to remain living in Australia to save it. The smart people often leave while they can.
Interesting. Jamie, on fire today, mate. It's really, really good to see you and to hear your voice again. I'm sure we can circle back another time soon and have another continuation of this conversation. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to talk about, but for now, thank you, mate. I really appreciate everything that you're doing. Thank you so much for your time. I was one of your first readers of what they should have taught you in school. And that was, I don't know, 30 years ago. I'm not sure. How old were you when you wrote that book?
I wrote
20
it in
something?
1999, so I'm 52 now. So that's what 26 years ago.
Yeah,
So yeah,
shit.
it's my age. Yeah.
I would have read it when it first came out. It was yeah, it was one of those things, and I remember seeing ads for employment for 21st century and education and all that kind of stuff. That was in the paper back in the Mercury back in yeah the 90s and 2000s stuff like that. So I've got some interesting touch points with you over the last 25 years or so. It's been an interesting journey to circle back and get to chat to you. So anyway, enough of that. Thank you, mate. Appreciate you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Not a problem. And Andrew, Adrian, any of your followers that wish to get a free ticket, we'll make them available for you and your followers. Freespeechsummit.com.au, freespeechsummit.com.au. That's coming up July 19th, 20th. Independent Media Awards in the middle night as well. You dress up cocktail party for that as well. But that's 22 speakers coming in for that. So I really applaud Australians. If you want to save your country, political revolution, we need to support independent media and be around like-minded people. So freespeechsummit.com.au. And if you want my book, they can download that to 21stcenturyu.com for free.
Legend. I'll pop everything in the show notes, mate, so everyone can go and find you and look at all your information and your new project as well. So congratulations on that. So yeah, I'll thank you again, man. I'll talk to you soon, all right?
No problem. Take care.
All right, take care.